What up, though, everybody? This is Kyle, and we are back with knockouts and three counts. And after a little bit of technical difficulty, as we've all learned to have the experience with this pandemic, we are live. We are here with the man himself, WWE Hall of Famer, the other half to Harlem Heat, Mr. Stevie Ray. How you doing, brother, man?
Going good, going good.
Hey, man, we just appreciate your time amidst all the technical difficulties, all that good stuff. Before we get started, man, let everybody know where they can find you, all your social medias, and where they can find you on Twitch and all that good stuff.
Yeah, Twitch / Stevie Ray TV. You can also go on YouTube, Stevie Ray TV. You can also go on my Facebook, my Instagram, Real Stevie Ray. And they got a new Patreon channel. They can go to the patreon.com/ forward Stevie Ray TV. Stevie Ray TV for everything. Find it all. It's Stevie Ray TV for everything. So / Stevie Ray TV on Patreon also.
And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, the link to Stevie's YouTube channel will be in the description as well. Well, like I said, man, it's an honor for me. I can't speak for anybody else but myself. But I just want to say it's an honor for us to have you on. Like we mentioned when we got to talk a little bit beforehand, we were talking about when we were live, getting to chat with your brother a few years ago at Astronomicon along with Eric Bischoff and Pritchard that weekend. So it's awesome to have the other end, Harlem Heat, on the show with us, bro, because we've had a lot of people have been sending in questions. So thank you for the time.
Okay, cool.
Devin, I'll let you go first because I know you had the full bank. What do you got first for our guest, bro?
Well, this is a question that I forgot to ask Booker, and who better to ask than Stevie Ray? Your theme music is probably, in my opinion, one of the best theme music in all of wrestling. It's stuck around from your early days in WCW to Booker using it now. What was the inspiration for that theme song? I think I know what it is, but I want to hear it from you.
Dog, with all due respect, I have no idea. I had nothing to do with that. That was just music that we had nothing to do with that. That was WCW. I think Jimmy Hart made that movie. I don't know, brother. I'm not a musician. I have no idea. I just walk out to whatever they played. I mean, I really didn't care back in those days. I just wanted a job.
Right.
Now, you being in the business as long as you have, would you say, like, how important would you say that is for somebody? Because, when somebody busts through the curtain, like we said, your guys' theme song has become, an iconic theme, just like you hear, a Stone Cold, a Triple H, or The Rock, you hear you hear that first couple seconds, who it is. Now having an iconic theme song like that, how important do you think that is for, a guy that's coming out on the mainstream?
Well, once you get into big time wrestling, all of that's very, very important. But some songs are better than others. Some songs are more catchier than others. That's why they call it American Top 40, because somebody like the one at the top and a few people like the one at the bottom. That's music. That's just the way it goes. Hopefully it's something that kind of distinguishes a character, you know what I'm saying? But nowadays it's a little different than back in those days. We had a little bit more range to work with.
Are you at least glad that, since you guys didn't have the creative direction, I guess you could say, on what the song it was, are you at least glad that song is what stuck? Or is it kind of a pain in the ass at this point that's the song that's related to you guys? You know what I mean?
Back in those days, they had a catalog of songs. So that's when they had started in the early 90s, when you couldn't just use the song you hear on the radio anymore because of the copyright infringement. Mm-hmm. So back in the days, they had a lot of different songs that were already composed, and they just found the one that fit our pretty much characters better than anything, and it just happened to be that one. So, the luck of the draw, man.
Well, since we're talking about Harlem Heat and that theme song, one of the first questions we got came to us from Antonio Frio. One of his questions he asked is he wanted to know, first of all, he said that you guys were one of his favorite tag teams, but he said he wanted to know, what was your favorite feud as Harlem Heat?
Man, I pretty much enjoyed all of them, man. I pretty much enjoyed all of them, to be honest with you. It was always a nigga. I mean, we was married to like the Steiner brothers and the
That was the name I was going to point out.
and the Nasty Boys. We was married to them, and then Marcus Bagwell and the Patriot, and Marcus Bagwell and Scotty Riggs. Man, we did so many. All of those guys were fun to work with, man. All of them. All of them. So I liked them all.
Well, as we
But
mentioned, go ahead, Dev. My bad.
yeah, one thing that I loved about the Harlem Heat that you guys did differently than anybody is whenever you guys would come down to the ring, you guys would do promos into the camera, and I don't think I've seen anybody else really do that. So, what was the inspiration behind that, and like who came up with the idea for that? I thought it was great for you
I
guys.
don't know, man. It was always like you know, a lot of people just talk when they go down the aisle, but or you, I don't know. If we saw a camera, we started talking to it. They started putting the guy in front of us with a camera. Usually the guy's kind of like off to the side and stuff like that. Then they started doing a camera with I think his name was Ed. And I remember somebody come back and said, "Hey man, I like that. Keep doing that." I can't remember who it was. One of the camera guys like, "Hey man, that's cool. Keep doing that." So we just kept doing it. So that's where it came from. It's kind of like an accident. You know, we seen the camera guy right in front of us. So okay, we'll talk to it instead of talking to the people, like most people do. They walk down and talk to the people. We start talking to the camera. It's like, let's talk to the people at home because the people here can see us anyway. So
Yeah. It made it a lot more interactive. It made it like real in your face, you know, like it
Right.
added an extra layer to it. That's for sure.
yeah, but that's how it started, man. Just nothing was really planned. You know, a lot of stuff we did was never really planned. It just had kind of happened. It's like, oh, that looked good. Let's do it again. So a lot of that stuff.
All right. So we're talking about promos, man. The one thing that we got asked a million different times is 21 years later, man. How many times a week do you get asked about the infamous promo with Mean Gene and Hulk Hogan, man?
Not very much.
See, it was crazy. We put out that we were bringing you on the show, and I kid you not, the first 6 questions we got in 5 different ways ask about the Hulk Hogan promo. I'm like, because I didn't know that was coming.
I've talked about that in length over the years,
Yeah.
but not. I don't get asked about it very much. I've gotten asked about it, and I've explained how the whole thing went down. I've explained the whole night on different people's shows, even on
Right.
my show. You know, and people still ask about it. You know, it's like, hey man, what were you thinking about? I get that one out. Hey man, what were you thinking about? And I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to do my side of the promo, so I'm not listening to him. You know, that was a live deal, so I'm not listening like someone would be doing at home watching a
Right.
television show. I got my interview in my mind that I got to get ready to do. So that's what's on my mind, the words going through my head, because eventually the camera's going to pan over to me and I got to say what I have to say. But when you see it on the video and everything cuts off before it gets to me. So I guess people actually think that maybe I didn't say anything, but it was a full interview on a live pay-per-view. And people ask me all the time, hey man, what were you thinking when Book said that? I'm like, fuck, I didn't even hear it. I wasn't even thinking. I didn't hear it till afterwards, like everybody else did. You know, it's like,
Well, I mean, and that's the thing when you're live. I mean, it's not like you can stop it and redo it, you know?
well, that's the thing. We had already did live interviews for the show. Because see, you don't do not live interview, but taped interviews for the pay-per-view. You never do that because you don't want any gaffes. This is a pay-per-view. Nobody does live interviews on pay-per-view unless they do it in the ring.
Right. And
it's no such thing as live pay-per-view. This is a pay-per-view. You don't want nothing to mess up.
Yeah, everything's pre-recorded, time slotted, so they know exactly what second it's ending, so they can roll right into it.
So we had done the tape. We had done the tape version, so we're getting ready. Actually, we're getting ready to go to the ring. We're getting ready to go to the ring when this happened. We about 15 minutes before. I can't remember who we were working with that night, but we were about 15 minutes away from walking through the curtain. So
So
then, oh, you got to do an interview again. I'm like, man, my brother, like, we already done the interviews earlier. You know what I'm saying? Well, we did the, you know, you mess up 3-4 times and redo it. Yeah, we've already done that. Now they want you to do it live. They want you to do it live. But they want you to talk about I don't know, another subject. Hulk Hogan. We could have did that afterwards. You know what I'm saying?
like that could have totally been done after the fact.
Right. And I'm like, oh my Jesus, man. So it is what it is, man.
Well,
Well,
one question.
I've got a question.
Oh, go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, I've got another question about an infamous moment in WCW history, and a lot of people don't realize that you and Booker were there for this. The infamous Shockmaster debut. You guys were right there on the set for the Shockmaster debut on Flair for the Gold, man. So when you see Shockmaster fall over, man, what are you thinking at that moment?
Same thing everybody in the audience thinking. What the fuck? That's what we thinking, man. What the hell is this, man?
So is everybody laughing, or are they just like, what the hell?
You're trying to keep from laughing, you know, where the people can see you and where your bosses can see you and stuff like that. But it was hilarious, man. I mean, we held it in, but man, it was tough. But then at the time, you go, wow, man, that's kind of tough. But everything kept going, and it was over and done with. And by the time the next day came along, oh man, it was all over the place, man. I was like, wow. But I said this on other interviews. Sid Vicious had said that was going to happen. He said it was going to happen before it ever happened, earlier that afternoon.
Was it because he couldn't see, or?
Frankly, you have to ask Fred that, because I've never really had a conversation with Fred about the whole thing before, because as messed up as it was, being a contemporary, I don't want to bring up that kind of bullshit in a fucking, conversation. So whatever he said on different things, that's something you have to ask him, because I've never, I felt so bad for the guy, man, so.
I totally understand.
Whenever I ever seen Fred after that, I've never had a conversation to this day. Matter of fact, I just seen him at a convention in 19 before everything stopped. And, we talk all the time, but I not one time has ever had a conversation with him about that. Not one.
Well, before we went live, we talked a little bit about, your show, and, you do your thing with Vince Russo, you've got your thing with Sonny Ono and all that as well. So one of my questions was completely unwrestling related. What was it that made you want to get into radio and stuff like that? Because for me, for those that have been watching our show for a while, I was working with kids with disabilities, and then this podcast just kind of fell into my lap because I decided to go to WrestleMania by myself.
Right.
For WrestleMania 33, and then Devin had me on his show, and then this show came to be. So for you, what was it that made you want to get into radio, or was that something that you wanted to do the whole time you were in wrestling?
Actually, I wanted to go into radio when I got out of high school. I wanted to go to college, and that's what I wanted to go into. I want to be a disc jockey.
Okay. Who was it that stuck out to you? Were there any voices in particular?
No. I just love listening to people on the radio, disc jockeys on the radio back in those days. And I really got a big kick out of it. Matter of fact, I used to DJ in clubs and things like that. So I've always done it. And then, you lose interest in it, you know what I'm saying? And then I never knew, I don't know, 30 some years later, in WCW, somebody would put me back on the mic to talk, and I only found out, a couple of years ago, how that whole thing came about, because I was like, I don't want to do no commentary, you know what I'm saying? And then someone was, no, we heard you were very good at it. So I used to come take the matches in the dressing room, because back in those days, we didn't have the big flat screens. They didn't have that kind of stuff back in those days. You just had a little monitor they put up there, so you kind of watch stuff before you get ready to go out and do what's sweat and see what's happening out there. And we didn't have, they had no sound on those monitors, so guys would ask me, "Hey man, can you do the play-by-play?" And so I would imitate different announcers and say funny stuff, and the guys got a big kick out of it. And that's how that whole thing started, man. Well, a lot of people didn't know that I used to DJ in clubs and stuff like that. And you have to go into the DJ voice and stuff like that when I was a young guy. And I just could turn it on and turn it off. Same way I just can do today if I have, like when I do my radio show, you know, I turn it on and turn it off.
And that's the kind of stuff we want to know, man. Like we want to get past the wrestling veneer. You know, another question I have for you is, you know, when we got to interview your brother, we talked more about fights than we did anything about wrestling. From what I know, Stevie Ray is a fight fan. So I got to pick your brain on a few of these things that we're seeing in the fight game. First of all, what are your thoughts now that we're removed a little bit of the fight with Conor McGregor and Poirier?
Conor McGregor and who?
Poirier, the kid that just knocked him out.
Oh, Justin Poirier.
Yes, sir.
Well, I had Mickey Gall on my show a week before that happened. And Mickey Gall told me on the show that Conor McGregor was going to get knocked out. So it didn't even surprise me.
I mean,
and I went to meet, I had something to do earlier that day. And then, I had a showing that I didn't get a chance to go to because it was raining down here. And a TV pilot that I was in a couple of years ago, well, right at maybe a year and 8 months ago, that showed on one of the Christian stations. They were doing a showing for it here, but over in LaPorte, which is, I don't know, close to 40 miles from where I live. And I was like, man, I don't feel like driving 40 miles in the rain. I started going over there, and then I turned around. I was like, man, forget this. So I came back to my side of town. And plus, I had something else to go to before that, and I was just kind of burnt out. And so I went to meet some buddies of mine at Hooters. And when I got there, they was like, who you got in the fight? And I said, man, I had Mickey Gall. And I pulled the video up on my phone and I showed it to them. We had like a 5-minute clip on YouTube. And I showed them what Mickey Gall was saying, man. And when it happened, I said, hey, man, that's what he said. But Conor McGregor,
I think people
are figuring him out now. People are figuring him out now. And you can see that fight. This guy don't like to get hit. And I don't know how he does not defend against those leg kicks. But people have figured him out, man. They knows what he doesn't like, and they knows what he does good. And I think I don't think Conor McGregor's still a good fighter, but other guys have gotten much better over the last 4 or 5 years too.
So
I think that's kind of what it boils down to. Is I think it's more of a competition thing. I think when you see him in there with the guys like Khabib, and you see him in there with the likes of Dustin Poirier, and you see the real top level guys in it's a totally different fight. But when you see Conor in there with the likes of a Cowboy and stuff like that, like a year ago, it's yet again a totally different fight. So I think it's real opponent based at this point. I think they need to just kind of focus on star fights less than title contention fights, honestly.
That Cerrone fight, man, I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it at all.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't buy it at all. I've seen Donald Cerrone fight a zillion times. I've never seen him come into a fight and didn't even give effort. Never saw it.
Okay.
I'm not trying to start a conspiracy theory here or nothing like that. But come on, man. This guy moved up to 170 and punked you out like that. I'm not buying that, bro.
So it's ironic you bring that fight up, because right before we interviewed your brother, past guest of our show, a good friend of ours, Miles Jury, had just fought Donald Cerrone in the UFC. That brings up another good question, though. So, you know, when you're speaking about somebody like Conor McGregor, and I've heard people like JR say this a lot, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. When you hear people talk about Conor McGregor a lot, at least in the pro wrestling world, you hear people say that the guys in MMA are doing pro wrestling better than pro wrestling. What do you think it is about Conor McGregor that makes that guy so polarizing like that? A, and B, do you agree with JR's assessment that he would say that some of the guys in MMA are doing pro wrestling better than some of the guys we see cutting promos today?
I agree with him 100%.
And what do you contribute that to?
You got to realize something. Entertaining people is very, very hard. Anybody can't do it. Even in pro wrestling. That's why you got certain guys that when they get in front of the mic, you can't wait for them to talk. Can't wait for them to talk. And that's why other guys, they might say something, you go, okay, that didn't hold my attention very well. But I really like the guy when he wrestles. But certain guys might not be the workers in the ring, but when you put that microphone in front of them, it's a whole nother ballgame. And that's when it comes down to entertaining. Some people, Conor McGregor is very, very entertaining, very entertaining. But he got the moxie to back it up, though. You know, that's the difference. It's a lot of guys that can maybe put it out there, but can't back it up. This guy can back it up, and he looks the part. So, that's the same thing you see with Muhammad Ali. You know, the guy made you want to come see him.
Yep.
That's art. That's an art form, and everybody doesn't have that art form. And because most people, I'm a fighter, man. I'm not an entertainer. I'm a fighter.
But it's absolutely sports entertainment for a reason. I mean, you can absolutely focus on the sport of it, and you can absolutely focus on the entertainment aspect of it. But if you're doing it right, you're incorporating a very good mix of the two, and that's the only way to really get to the top.
I mean, and it's still entertainment, whether it's competitive entertainment or sports entertainment. It is still entertainment.
Yep.
People want to be entertained, whether they know it or not. They still want to be entertained. That's why somebody like Floyd Mayweather was very good at it. Now, you can't remember one Floyd Mayweather fight, but you can remember the buildup.
Very good point.
Fights. And the only two fights anybody remember that Floyd Mayweather had was against the Big Show and Conor McGregor.
Yeah, Canelo.
You really?
Yeah, but man, people weren't hype on the buildup though.
Canelo, Pacquiao. I'm a sports nut, so I can go a couple deeper. But I get the point that you make 110% though. It is mostly face value and his ability to sell compete on a consistent basis. His ability to go in there and do it repeatedly over and over again and draw interest for the same product.
Let me put it like this. When somebody remembers a fight, they will talk about it in a barbershop forevermore.
Yep.
I didn't say remember that the fight happened.
They'll be
the
talking
people
about
that
it.
remember those fights remember everything that happened in those fights because they wanted the fight to end. And it'll never end in their minds. That's what I'm talking about. Being a sports guy got nothing to do with what I'm talking about. When you have they used to have this thing on ESPN called Legendary Nights. Not one fight this man had was a legendary night fight. Legendary nights, they will live forever in people's minds.
I mean,
well, guys, let me get my last question here because I'm at the dip out here in a second. But Stevie, I just want to say thank you, man. I got the chance to thank Booker T personally, but I want to thank you too, man, for being a great inspiration for me as a kid. Growing up, man, you know, watching wrestling, you didn't really see a lot of people that look like me on TV, man. For you and your brother to go out there and be 10-time tag team champions, your brother be a world champion, and you know, to show that, hey, you know, there's black people out here too that can do this at a very high level. I want to thank you personally for, you know, being an inspiration for a little black kid in Detroit, you know, some 20, almost 30 years ago. So I just want to give you your flowers while I can do that now, man.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
And one thing Booker told us is that that's something that he thought about during that time too, is that he wanted to be an inspiration for young black kids that grew up in, you know, not necessarily the best neighborhoods, but just black people in general. So, and especially this being Black History Month and you being a part of Black History, African American in the WWE Hall of Fame, congratulations. For you, man, when you hear someone like me say that, hey, I watched you and you inspired me to see someone that looks like me, what does that do for you?
Oh man, it's surreal, man. Really and truly, because for a long time, I was so focused on wrestling that I didn't even think about who was watching me and who what, because I never brought my job home with me. And when I
Right.
went to my job, I was just focused on my job. I never thought about the impact that we was having on our own people until I started to go places, and then people would be, "Are you Stevie Ray?" and blah blah blah, and I'm like, "Yeah." Do I know you? And I go, no, no, no. I watch you on TV. I wasn't even in that world. I never cared about being a celebrity. And I never thought about who was watching and stuff like that. It took me a few to really realize, hey, man, wait a minute. Man, people are watching us. You know what I'm saying? Like, wow, I still carried myself just like a regular, ordinary guy, which I am. But I never thought about wrestling when I wasn't around wrestling until people started telling me like what you're saying right now. And it's like I was like, wow, man, this is different. Especially
What?
because we were heels, you know,
Right.
Mhm.
heels for so long. But coming to uh WCW, we were baby faces for a few years in global. And that was totally different because the babyface mentality is totally different. So it took me a minute, man, to really start to grasp, the impact we were having in our community.
Well, I just once again, man, I just want to thank you. Even though you didn't realize you were doing it, man, you were definitely doing it. And I just want to say thank you. And I'm gonna get out of here, but I'm gonna ask one last question. I'll leave you guys with it. Uh, did you ever play softball with Sid?
Oh shit.
You know,
I'll leave you guys to it, man. Peace out.
playing no
Thanks
damn
again, Steve.
softball with Sid.
I knew he was gonna ask that too. Well,
So
before
I can't
before we
believe
wind down, I got a couple more we got a couple more fan questions that were asked. One being since we were just talking about you guys being heels and things of that nature, um what was the biggest thing you learned from your time with Sherri Martell, and what are your overall thoughts on being teamed up with Sherri Martell? That was one of the questions we got from one of our listeners.
oh, it was great, man. Those were great times, man. Those are like the best times of my life in the business when we were doing our thing with Sherri, because Sherri was a professional. She was a real professional wrestler. So it wasn't like somebody you had to groom or try to nurture them, in the business. She was a worker that had more experience than me and my brother. So those are some of the best times of my life, man, because it was just like riding with one of the boys, man, just like doing shows with one of the boys. It was great.
And I mean, from everything I've ever heard, you didn't have to worry about protecting her at ringside because from everything I heard, she was as tough as they came.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She's a worker. She's a
Yep.
real worker. I mean, the girls, the women back in those days were not like the women of today. You got to realize there was no training facilities really for women, so the women had to train with the guys because you didn't have but a few people that were female professional wrestlers back in those days.
It
You're
makes
talking about the 80s, man. Wasn't but a few people.
and that back then wasn't it, and not only that, I mean back then I would imagine from everything I've ever read or learned from it, I mean for a woman to get in the business back then, I mean there were only a few avenues. You had Moolah and her camp. I mean it wasn't like it is now where it's that easy to get into the business.
What I mean, I'm talking about the overall perspective of the business, not more or less Moolah that everybody knows her. She done been on WWE. She's been in
Yeah,
there
yeah.
for years. We do the documentary on her. I'm just talking about women in general in the continental United States of America. It just wasn't this big draw to professional wrestling by women. If you went to a professional wrestling show back in those days, it wasn't very many women in the audience. And if it were, they were just there with their boyfriends or their husbands. You know, it was probably what, maybe 80-20
Yeah. And
back
that's
in those days.
generous.
Yeah. So it was just not something some little girl. Now you look at little women, girls, and they see girls on TV that look exactly like them now. So it like it's all the entertainment game now. So I wouldn't mind doing that. It's a big lure for women today, but back in those days, no. So that's what I'm saying. Sherri was a worker. And when I say that, that's not female or male.
That's just in general.
Right. She was a worker. So,
I get what you mean.
She's the real deal.
Okay, so to go with the work thing, another question that we got from another past guest of our show, Mr. Chase Burnett, he told us to ask you. He said he wanted to know if you have any thoughts or memories of your guys' run in New Japan in 1996. He said that your guys' run through there was a brutal run, so he said he wanted to know, were there any thoughts, memories, or stories you had from your run with New Japan in 96?
Man, just tough, man. That was just tough sledding, man. Very tough sledding. That Japan stuff is, tough. So that's pretty much all I remember. That is, you just got to bring it over there. Just got to bring it.
Yeah, wrestling in Japan's a whole nother world. It really is. I mean,
Japan's different.
I've taken quite a few years off of wrestling and just getting back into it with getting into the podcast and stuff. It's been doing my research and stuff on that regard is insane, man. These people out in Japan are leveling people. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
It's just like when you used to watch Pride back in the day, though. Like the difference you would see in a Pride fight versus what you see here in America, man. I mean, I feel like I feel like the way they fight, the way they wrestle, I feel like it's just a culture difference. I mean, everything in Japan is just a different way of doing stuff, I feel like.
You hit it right on the head. It's a culture difference, man.
Yeah.
And you just have to adapt. So.
All right, well let's end this one on a lighter note. So this is the last fan question I got. This comes from a guy who watches this every week. So Jimmy, when you see this, I got you, brother, man. Him and his dad wanted to ask. He goes, was there any truth to the rumor that in 2002 Booker T got a letter that said, I still remember? Was there any, I guess what he's hinting at was there ever any, plan for them to bring you in once Booker had come in with the invasion angle or anything like that? Or any, did they ever reach out to you for that, or any plan put together for that?
They did, but not for that.
That's something I always wondered too, because I was like, damn, how'd they not bring Stevie over? I mean, obviously Booker had split and did his one, singles thing, but
first of all, let me get you straight on something. Don't nobody do shit for Stevie. Stevie do shit for himself. They don't bring me nowhere. I didn't want to go to WWE.
I can respect that. My bad.
For anybody that wants to know, I didn't want to go to WWE because I knew what they were going to do to every fucking body that came from WCW. And I wasn't going to go through that bullshit.
Can't be argued with the way it played out, because I mean, a lot of those guys were out on the contracts, and I mean, it wasn't like everybody came, so I could totally understand that.
I'm just saying this, when you say, why didn't they bring Stevie? No. Why didn't Stevie bring himself?
I didn't mean it as any kind of disrespect at all, man. That wasn't.
I'm just letting you know, and anybody that's out there that's listening, I never want to go to WWE for somebody can make me look like a fucking idiot. I'm not the New Day. I'm not Crime Time. I'm not my brother running from Steve Austin in a fucking supermarket. You got me fucked up. Or what they did with Dallas Page, or what they did with Scott Steiner. Fuck that. I don't need that.
I can completely respect that too, wanting to protect your own, protect your own likeness. I totally get that. Like I said, I didn't even know it was on that tip. Like I said, this is the first chance I've ever gotten to talk with the invasion thing. That's why when that was brought up, I wanted to hear your thoughts on it, because that was one thing I've always wondered all these years later. You know, because as I mentioned, you know, earlier in the interview, you guys were one of my favorite tag teams in WCW, point blank. So I always wondered, you know, once there was the sell of WCW, I always wondered why you never ended up coming over there. But it's nice to finally hear from your end, you know, what went into that.
Oh, I've talked about it on many shows, many
No,
times.
I just mean to do it, to be it, to hear
No,
it.
I know what
Yeah,
you're
you know what I
saying.
mean?
I'm just saying, the invasion thing was to make everybody from WCW look like they coming over here. Then all of a sudden, one by one, they make them look like the drizzling shits.
Can't even argue it because it didn't work the way I don't think anybody had planned for that. So I can't argue that at all.
Really, it worked the way they wanted it to work.
That's exactly what I was about to say. It worked exactly the way the organization planned, because they didn't want to make the competition look like they were just that competition, and if not competition, maybe even the better product to begin with. So I completely agree.
They didn't do nothing but use those guys to get their guys over.
Yep.
And that's what, and I told, do you know how many wrestlers in the business that I told that was going to happen and nobody believed? I'm not.
You think it was just they were sold like it's WWE, it's just got to be a great thing kind of deal?
WWE is WWE. That's a Vince McMahon brand. Vince McMahon is going to take care of his brand, just like CNN, just like Fox, just like MSNBC, just like ABC, NBC, CBS. That's a brand. I don't share my brand with anyone. That's business. That's not pro wrestling. That's business. That's any kind of business. Don't even matter what the business is. We don't share nothing. And we don't build other people's business. We destroy other people's business and we profit off of them. Like what Mitt Romney did whenever political candidate, people didn't know what he did in real life. That is what his business did. Took over other businesses, made money off them, closed them down.
Hey man, well, like I said, I'm glad that we got to talk about it because it's nice to hear that. I mean, like I said, obviously you hear it in interviews, you hear it in a million different things, but that was something I just always wondered about because, you know, getting to do these interviews and getting to talk to so many different people, you know, you hear bits and pieces of different things. That was something I always wanted to know about because I turned 29 this year, so I was 9 right as this was going on. So I grew up right through that. So that was something I had always wanted to know about as well. Well, like I said, man,
I didn't even go to the last taping when they were going to show up at the show. I didn't even go.
The night WCW shut down when Shane showed up?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm not going to be a part of this. I ain't no pussy. I feel as though we were an intricate part of WCW becoming what
There's no arguing that.
And now I'm going to sit here and I ain't got nothing against Vince, Shane, none of those guys. This ain't got nothing to do with them. This is a me thing. And I don't think we should go out as pussies like this. So I didn't want to be a part of the pussy fest and begging somebody for a job. So I went overseas. I started going back and forth overseas and I loved it. Because you didn't have to deal with all this commercial garbage anymore.
Do you like wrestling there better than in the States?
And yes. And these ass kissing ass dickheads that you have to deal with behind the scenes guys. These dick sucking pussies, man. You know, so I ain't built for the shit, bro.
I've always heard that from guys when they talk about their time in Japan, man. Like everybody says they like dealing with things over there in Japan just because it's a lot less bullshit than what you get here in the States. So, I mean, that's something that's good to hear on that side too. Well, I do let you get out of here. Who are you picking this weekend on those fights? You got Frankie Edgar's fighting Saturday, and then what's the main event, Corey? Overeem and Volkov?
Yeah, Corey Sandhagen, Frankie Edgar in the co-main, and then Alistair Overeem versus Volkov for the main.
The Edgar fight, I really don't know. To me, I think that's a pick and fight. I don't know how much. You got to realize, guys like Frankie have been in wars, man. How much is it left?
I agree. He's got the most active fight time of all the UFC fighters still in. So,
man. But I don't put anything past him though. But you know, sometimes Father Time can just show up, but I don't know. I don't put anything past Frankie. But Overeem, bro, this guy's done. This guy, I mean, come on, bro. This guy shouldn't even be fighting anymore.
See,
But he's still a draw. He's not a pay-per-view draw anymore. But I think because of the ESPN contract, they still got him around. But other than that, man, I would be surprised if he won this fight, really.
if I'm not mistaken, he's on a 3-fight win streak, though. So I agree with you. Like when he,
But the
it seems
heavyweight
like
division ain't even that stacked right now, though.
Yeah, it seems like it happens the same way for him, and it seems like it almost always has in his career, where he works his way up to the top of the division, gets that real key marquee matchup, main event, and then doesn't end up with the W at the end of the night. Ends up in second place.
I really like him, but the guy been knocked out so many times, man. But he's still on a 3-fight win streak. But now I think the competition, the Russian is a little. That guy's hungry. But I'm putting for Alistair because I really like the guy. I really do. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of his, man. But when guys get knocked out like that, man, it's hard to watch.
Dude, I was there the night he got destroyed by Ngannou. That was here in Detroit. That was, oh my God. Bro, we met them the night before, and Ngannou's fist was bigger than my damn head. And then we watched the fight, and I'm like, damn, he just fucking killed that guy.
Oh, my.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a big fucking dude to be hitting you. Like, I know it sounds simplistic, but when you see a guy that close to you, and then you watch that same dude just murder a guy like that, you're just like, damn, that sucks.
But, they're grooming one of these guys. I don't know who it could be. Could be Overeem.
Yeah.
They grooming one of these heavyweights to fight John Jones. I just don't know which one it is yet.
It's Ngannou, man. It's gotta be, man.
I don't know, man, because I honestly think they want to put him in there with a heavyweight. They're not going to put him in there with a killer his first fight.
Do you think he'll try to go fight at light heavyweight again?
No, man. He relinquished the title, remember?
Right, I know, but as soon as they said they were going to do that title fight between Izzy and Blachowicz, Jones immediately was like, oh, I might have to go do my thing at heavyweight and then come back down and reclaim my belt. I'm like, man, you got pretty big to be talking about going back to 205.
Yeah.
The thing is this, though. It's nothing at 205 anymore. When you clean the division up, even in boxing, that is what I held against Floyd Mayweather. You fought at 54. You look at Sugar Ray Leonard. You look at Tommy Hearns. You look at Roberto Duran. You look at Sugar Ray Robinson. All the great welterweights ended up at middleweight.
Yep.
Because it's like, I'm better than these guys. Let me go test myself with a bigger man. That's one thing I hold against Floyd Mayweather. You never did.
I can't argue that. And I'm a huge Floyd fan. Like, Stevie, we didn't get to talk about this much, but that's part of where the fighting end of our show comes from. I've been boxing since I was 13. And when I was coming up, it was right in the middle of Floyd's run. Like, I remember sitting watching with my coach when he fought Ricky Hatton.
Right.
And that was the one blemish on Floyd's run. And this is somebody who self-admittedly, I was a huge Floyd Mayweather fan. But my one gripe I always had with Floyd was it always seemed like when it came to taking that next step up fight, whether it was like Pacquiao or when they wanted him to go up to fight Canelo, at first he was a little hesitant with that one. It seemed like every time he got to the next bigger guy that might have had him by a little bit, those were the fights where you saw him a little bit more hesitant to get in there. But then again, we're talking about a guy who's, 50-0, dude. What are you going to say?
Check this out. The New England Patriots was 16-0 until they ran into somebody that wasn't afraid of their game. New York.
Very good point.
So it ain't styles make fights. It's not so much as your record. It's your competition. Now, if the Patriots had been in the division, like the division the Giants was in, you think they would have been 16-0?
Oh, no.
You see the difference?
Especially not that year either.
Your competition. The Giants in the division with the Dallas Cowboys, the Redskins, you know, the New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys, Redskins, and the Eagles. Do you know, brother, that is bread and butter. And you got it. I mean, whoever comes out after season is a hell of a team back in those days.
Yep.
Can't argue that at all.
So
Can't
when
argue that.
you had to play the Miami Dolphins, okay, the New York Jets, and the Buffalo Bills that got a different, each team got a different coach and a different quarterback every year.
What are you saying about my boys in Buffalo, man?
Just telling it like it is, dog.
No, I completely agree with you, man. I completely agree with you. That's facts. The only reason Buffalo has a surge lately in fanhood, but I completely agree with you.
I'm talking about back in the mid to late 2000s and the early 2011, sir. Totally different, bro.
Yep.
So that's what I'm saying. When you look at Mayweather's record, who can't have 50-0, but once you became a top fighter and a top draw in the business, fought nothing but flat-footed Hispanic fighters.
I mean, dude, I can't even argue that. That's been my one bitch when it comes to boxing for years, man, is that you always see these guys where I wouldn't say Floyd was padded up to 20-0 because he fought some killers like Angel Man Freddy and a few other people on the way up, and Chico Corrales, but
all of that stuff was at lower weights.
Yeah.
That was 147. We all know Angel Man Freddy was a good fighter. He wasn't a great fighter. Another thing about Floyd Mayweather, after he beat a 33, 34-year-old cocaine snorting, walking around with pantyhose on, Oscar De La Hoya, which was a split decision, which means a lot of people thought Oscar won that fight. But this is the thing. Why didn't you fight him again?
I mean, that's a good point.
He did that with everybody in his career. He got that one, he got it over him, whether it was at an advantage position or, you know, like that's the argument consistently with the Canelo fight is, oh, he got him when he was young. Why not rematch him? Why not that? You know,
why did you fight Marcos Maidana twice?
I can't argue that at all because
it's a different level of competition. One is more of a paycheck, and one of them is a real test.
Are you seeing what I'm saying? And why did you fight Canelo after he was it Canelo? Yeah, after Canelo. He fought Canelo after Canelo fought what was his name? The one that beat Miguel Cotto. My boy Charlo just beat him a couple of years ago. The same guy I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I know who you're talking about. I'm just trying to.
Damn, I can't think of the guy's name. But in that fight, what did you see? Canelo don't know how to deal with a jab. Even though Canelo won that fight, and it was right here in San Antonio, Texas. If it wasn't for the knockdown, Canelo lost that fight. But they was gonna give it to him anyway. But the guy jabbed him to death. Then right after that, that's when Floyd wanted to fight him. This is my third thing on Floyd Mayweather. You stepped away from the African-American fighter. You never fought the African-American fighter. So with all that being said, I would never put you in the level of any of the greatest because you never fought the African-American fighter once you became the man, other than a 40-year-old Shane Mosley and a knocked down, drugged out, beat up Andre Berto.
I can't argue with that.
You can't. I mean, he brings up all valid points too, because when you talk about the Berto fight, he certainly didn't fight Berto when Berto was at killer status.
He was never nothing, bro.
Now, I liked Berto when he first came out, but
against nothing competition. As soon as they put him in there with real fighters, he got his ass knocked out every week. He's an offensive fighter, no defense, no footwork. He's a good athlete.
That is one thing that is definitely true with Berto. His footwork was never that guy's strong suit at all. He'd get in close, and if he got tangled up, he was in trouble. Well, Stevie, before we let you get out of here, man, we talked a little bit about the big game this weekend. Who are you rolling with? Are you rolling with age and experience in Tom Brady, or are we going with the young buck Patrick Mahomes?
Let me put it like this, man. You look at the 3 games that the Buccaneers played, it's like the football gods opened up and said, there will be a Super Bowl for you guys. They went against the Washington football team with a 5th-string quarterback.
Mhm.
Good point.
Almost lost. Almost lost.
And then went against a New Orleans Saints team with everybody injured, and Drew Brees with plantar fascia, 3 broken ribs, and a rotator cuff needing, and he threw 3 interceptions. Everything lined up for him. Then you get against the Green Bay Packers, and the coach called the dumbest. I don't know who was calling these plays. 8 seconds left, and a defensive back that had already let guys catch every pass on him that day. Let Scotty Miller get behind you with 8 seconds left in the half.
Yeah.
It's
that
like
was so bad, dude.
3 interceptions, and you still, nobody capitalized on it. It's like the football gods wanted them in the Super Bowl. But if you honestly think Andy Reid, if anybody think Andy Reid is not going to come out with plays that you ain't never, Andy Reid's going to tell him, brother, I'm not, this ain't Peyton. This ain't your boy that just came off the COVID list and the cancer list with Washington. And this ain't some young coach with a great quarterback that don't know how to call plays and, just know how to put stuff together for a NFC championship game. This Andy Reid. And I'm going to tell you,
I was a fan of him since he was with Philly.
Andy Reid coming out to put his foot on your throat. Watch and see what I tell you.
All right, so he's going with Patrick Mahomes. Corey, who are you going with?
Yet again, some very valid points there. I think Andy Reid is, like you said, essentially the difference. But Patrick Mahomes, man, his ability to stretch out plays, man, his ability to avoid sacks and ability to even just drag stuff out that you're like, oh, this is for sure going to be a negative of, he's going to lose 5 yards on this play, 110%.
He's not going to play like Aaron Rodgers did. Aaron Rodgers had a touchdown at the end of the game and chose to throw the ball back inside with 2 guys covering the receiver. Did you see that?
Yep. He played incredibly defensive. Aaron Rodgers is an incredible quarterback, and being from Detroit, we get to see him twice a year, every damn year, and I wish we didn't.
Fuck the Packers. Did I say?
But that being said, man, yeah, he has his moments where if you're able to pressure him, especially from the blind side, he doesn't do well with pressure. Never has.
He got sacked 5 times. He got sacked 5 times against Tampa Bay. And some of the sacks he shouldn't have even got sacked.
Yeah.
He just sit there looking, and then he got sacked. I'm like, throw the ball away, man. Come on, you've been in the league for that, bro. If you honestly think Patrick Mahomes, this dude is a savant, man.
Mm-hmm.
This is a quarterback savant, which means to be so young and so gifted and don't make
mistakes.
The guy 25, but he played like he's 35.
I agree completely.
Yep. And his ability to get to the Super Bowl essentially effortless last year, and then to return to the Super Bowl again this year and make it look almost effortless.
Yeah.
That's you don't see that.
Go to back-to-back Super
common
Bowls
thing.
this early in your career, man, and to have performances like he had in the first one, and who knows what he's going to do in this game, but if it's anything like anything he's done this season, the man's going to kill it. Look, us being from Michigan, I would love to see Tom Brady win. I'm not one of those that's hating on him because he's got all the titles. I'd love to see him win. But if we're talking about who I think is going to win on being a smart pick, dude, how do you pick against the Chiefs?
Well, I'll tell you this. If Tom Brady can pull this one off,
is he the greatest of all time?
I argue with people about who the best quarterback I ever seen. And I always tell people, Tom Brady is the most winningest quarterback, but that don't make him the best quarterback I ever seen. But if he wins this, there's only one other person to ever win Super Bowls with 2 other teams, and that's Peyton Manning.
Yep. With Indy and Denver, man. Like I said, if Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl, he has to be the greatest of all time. And I don't know. It makes me interested to see what happens with it.
I'll put it like this. I would always tell people he's the greatest of all time in a passing era.
Okay.
Because rules You're 29 years old. Rules were so different in the 80s and 90s than they are now.
Yep.
The rules
110%.
to be the greatest. In essence, you look at the guys' numbers now who are nobodies, and they got better numbers than people that were great quarterbacks in a different era. People don't realize Joe Montana won 4 Super Bowls.
That was the name I was going to say.
Joe Montana never had a 4,000-yard season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's almost like the bar of entry for like a top 10 level quarterback now.
A rookie, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it really is insane when you point it. But the game of football, it's just like everything, it evolves, right? I mean, you see, it was such a more run it down your throat, clock management type style game. Now
that was because the rules. Now the quarterback is protected.
I was just about to say, if you even touch a quarterback, man, you're getting a roughing the passer.
You can't even look at him too hard. And people go, "Why is Brady playing?" Well, you look at a lot of quarterbacks that can play to damn near 40 years old now. Because if you can't play to 40 as a quarterback now, then you just a straight up old-fashioned everyday bitch.
Stevie Ray telling it like it is here on Knockouts and 3 Counts. And this is why you got to check him out on Stevie Ray TV on YouTube and all the other great places you can check out his radio show and podcast, because he's talking not just wrestling, not just fights, not just politics, sports, everything involved. Man, I just want to say, I know I've said it a couple times in this interview, dude. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I hope that we can hook up again soon. Like I said, we're headed down to Texas here actually in 10 days.
Yeah, let's do it, bro.
Hey, man, like I said, I greatly appreciate you, and we definitely will bring you back, man. And this will be live for all of you guys that are watching it. It will be live on our YouTube, anywhere you can find podcasts. So stay tuned. And until next time, in the in-between time, peace.